Connecticut is one of the richest states in the Union because it's always been rich in people who could invent things, new things that people could use, like the typewriter, like the corkscrew, like the helicopter.
This version was perfected by the same ingenious mind that dreamed up the round-back guitar. Charlie Kaman epitomizes the Connecticut inventor.
Kaman Corporation started in 1945 with $2,000. And that's the great American story, that we could do that and survive and grow, and today we'll be at about $500 million. But then, the idea was to build a helicopter that any man could fly and go to the drugstore for a tube of toothpaste. It was a great idea.
In the 40s, working in the shadow of the great Igor Sikorsky, inventor of the original helicopter, Kaman developed a rotor system to make the copter more stable.
Well, I, at the time, worked for United Aircraft, Hamilton Standard Division, and I was an aerodynamicist by trade. I'm an aeronautical engineer. And I did the performance calculations and so on, and at the time I went and said, hey, this isn't going to work the way we're building helicopters. They're too hard to fly. You can't fly them for over an hour. They're unstable. It's like riding a beach ball, which means you don't. There isn't enough power, so on. And I have a better idea. Come see it. And so at the time, the then head of Hamilton came to see it. And I whirled this thing on a stand and proved to him that it would work. After looking at it, he said, well, there isn't any question it works, but we have our inventor. His name is Igor Sikorsky, and we don't need another one. I said, bye-bye.
It took the mind of a guitar-playing inventor to grasp the connection between the helicopter and this.
Well, for years, the whole problem in helicopters is to make them not shake. And as you're going along, you've got this rotor turning up here with all kinds of harmonics coming down, aerodynamics, dynamics, excitation that makes them shake. This guitar, to make it good, it must shake. So you do the opposite. And that's how we created this round back, created more sound in the top, the Ovation guitar. It's been around a while now. And it's been well received. People like them. I like it. Yes, it is small potatoes compared to the rest of our business, but it's a fun potatoes.
Mr. Charles Kaman.
In 1945, the task of building a helicopter was very formidable. And indeed, we were going to build one with a servo flap control, and that had never been done before. Fortunately, I had a test rig, which I had built to prove a principle, and it was on this test rig, shown in these early shots, that we first realized that our servo flap control would work and would be successful. When we built the K-125, getting it out of the old gymnasium building at Bradley Field was no small feat, and we continually worried about banging up on the blades. It took a lot of nerve to fly this steel tube contraption as it looks. It was kind of primitive, and all of the boys had somehow a feeling it might just fly away. We even had a rope tied to the middle of it. Every time it got off the ground about a foot, Eddie Gaughan was in the back, and he'd pull down on the tail that would really mess up Jack Rohr, the pilot, pretty badly. Little by little, we gained confidence, and it was doing better and better. That's Lou Schuler about to dance in the back there. And it was not long before it was just thrilling everybody at Bradley Field with its maneuvers. This little strip was taken on Good Friday of 1947, and we had our investors from New Enterprises in Boston down, and a lot of notables from Hartford. Everybody was amazed to see the agility and the stability that was demonstrated even then, and is today the hallmark of the SH-2F helicopter in the fleet. Those qualities have never left command helicopters. This was the Good Friday right here flyby. Jack was doing about 50 to 60 miles an hour, and everybody was simply thrilled to death. Gene Hotchkiss slapped me on the back right here and nearly knocked me down. He was so thrilled. As we went along, we finished it up a bit, put some covering around the fuselage and covered up the fin. And of course, it began to look entirely like a flying machine should. There were a lot of heartaches. We had accidents, we had troubles, and most of all, we had the agony of raising money to keep going. Because not having a CAA certificate, we couldn't fly for money, and we couldn't sell. We then built the K-190, a crop duster by design, because we had learned that we just wouldn't finance the cost of a CAA certificate of the everyman's commercial helicopter. This is the K-190, and this is showing some film from the plane itself. The maneuverability was simply outstanding. Life magazine did a very colorful piece on it. And in fact, we had Movie Tone News came up, and it was on Pathé and Movie Tone and Lowell Thomas and all of these nationwide.
Here comes the Kaman 190, a new star on the helicopter horizon. This job has drawn special interest in aviation circles, for many observers feel that helicopters have a big future as air flivvers. Here's the plane and fancy fuselage for tomorrow. Today at Windsor Locks, Connecticut, it's strictly a fresh air taxi, but with plenty of performance. Not only is it simple, safe, yet cheaply built, it's easier to fly than other types. Its double rotor flight control is almost something magic. As an example, take the card test. 3 cards, 3 ladies, and a perfect 3-point landing. Servo flaps on the rotor blades are what make it so easy to handle. Gentle, too. You can literally lead it around by the nose. The machine's designer claims almost anyone can fly it with an hour's instruction. All you need is 2 arms, 2 hands, and a head. The helicopter gives you that outdoor elevator feeling, going up, 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 and over. The ship's useful load is 800 pounds. Operational ceiling is 11,000 feet, top speed 95 miles per hour, not to mention air brakes. An important shadow in aviation's future, this safe and simple helicopter is a preview of tomorrow's flight.
So we took it to Washington and showed it to Senator McMahon, and Anthony Sadlak was the congressman there. Bill Murray is now the chief of flight test and is flying. And this was right on the Mall in front of the Capitol. Also, we used to barnstorm every Sunday, and you think we didn't pull in some crowds. Just remember, every single car and every person was a mark for selling some stock, and that's how we kept the company going. Every Sunday, a new crowd, new stock sales. Wasn't it a thrill when we could put 5 of them up? These were crop dusters, all destined to go out and do work, now having attained CAA certification. And it was nice to be able to put on an air show that would thrill all of the local community. We tried all kinds of ideas of promotion. This one was for Coca-Cola, the pause that refreshes. Somehow they didn't sell, even though the pilot was drinking in the middle of the whole maneuver. That is, Coca-Cola. But nonetheless, we continued our efforts to crop dust from Maine to Florida, all over the Northeast, in the tobacco fields, in the potato fields, and the dust that machine put down penetrated to the very bottom leaves of the crops. It was outstanding. It was just a big problem. All the farmers wanted it at the same time, and that's when the bugs were out. And the rest of the time, you'd stand around waiting and starving. This shows how that dust would come down through the leaves and penetrate to the very bottom. Meanwhile, we got the Navy interested, and one day came the world-famous turbine helicopter with the Boeing 502, the K-225, which is on display at the Smithsonian and borrowed back for our 40th anniversary celebrations, became the first helicopter in the world to be powered by a gas turbine engine. It set unbelievable records at that time. The most notable was that it flew to 10,000 feet on one of its very early flights with Bill Murray. It was truly a trailblazer, and one of the remarkable things about it was that it was so very quiet, so very easy. The turbine was destined to revolutionize the helicopter industry, and here in just a very few short years, we had not only revolutionized stability and control, but now the power plant application itself. And from this point on, helicopters would always be powered by turbines.
If you think you're seeing things, let me tell you something. You are. We've just dropped in for a visit to Kaman Corporation here in Bloomfield, Connecticut, creators of the first pilotless helicopter. Now, according to this letter that I have from Bob Klein of Syracuse, New York, he writes, a strange new sight has been added to the long list of American aeronautical achievements. A helicopter drone, where radio signals have replaced the need for a pilot, has been developed by the Command Company. Because its potentials are unlimited, I think this is a natural story for you to ask for it. Okay, Bob, let's take a closer look. First, I'd like to point out one thing. Because of CAA restrictions on pilotless aircraft over populated areas, such as our test area right here, the drone must be tethered at all times. Now, as you can see, there are no control wires. Just this piece of rope to keep it within bounds. And over here is the amazingly simple control unit. Hello, Bob Mack.
Hello, Jack. I'd like you to meet Charlie Kaman, the president and founder of our company.
Mr. Kaman, it's a pleasure.
Hi, Jack.
Say, I think this is a great machine that you've developed here. I imagine it has a lot of uses.
Well, it certainly does. We're highly enthusiastic about the future potential of the robot, Jack. You know, in military world, the robot being able to deliver weapons on enemy submarines is a truly great innovation. but it can also be used for spotting artillery, reconnaissance, photography, and then there's that area of chemical and radioactive warfare where a robot can go into contaminated areas and do very well. But you know, the truly most amazing thing about this device is that anybody can fly it. How about you? Would you like to try?
I give my eye teeth to.
Bob Mack, you take over.
This stick controls the speed and direction of flight of the robot. You tilt it in the direction in which you wish to fly, and it varies the cyclic controls in the helicopter automatically.
Oh, I see. Well, now I know about the speed and the direction. How do I go up?
The collective pitch control ring here inches the lift on the helicopter. You increase the pitch and lift to rise, you decrease it to descend.
Well, once I get up there, how do I turn right and left?
This little knob on top of the stick here turns you right or left. When you release it, it holds your heading while you're hovering. The helicopter is automatically stabilized all the time.
Well, how about my trying it now?
Be my guest.
This tiny control stick can fly the pilotless copter in any direction. It's all done by radio signals, ground to plane. Let's turn the ring and see what happens. The copter rises straight up, but now watch. The moment I release the stick, a conventional helicopter can take over radio control. Yes, a high-flying control station that allows the drone maximum flying range. Now an airborne operator is in complete charge. His control panel radios commands to the pilotless copter just as we did from the ground. The robot can stay in flight for 2 hours, and with the restraining rope released, rise to 15,000 feet, control switching from ground to air or to other ground stations as it moves from one area to another. Well, now I'll take over again and try and bring the robot down. And if I can do it, anybody can.
The HTK and the HOK helicopters were bought by the Navy, the TK meaning for training and the OK meaning for observation, the first for the Navy fleet, the latter for the Marine Corps, for service. And these planes came about because of the outstanding technical achievements that had been demonstrated in those first K-190s and K-225s. We simulated rescues all over the place. We simulated what the helicopter could do. It could carry 2 wounded in its litters. And if you remember the MASH film, this was to replace those helicopters that carried the wounded kids in stretchers on the outside with just a bubble over their heads. This one could carry 2 litters inside and a medical attendant and the pilot, the HOK. They flew all over the world. They flew in many combats, and in time were replaced by the H-43A and H-43B. It was bought by the Air Force for airbase crash rescue. Now here, the Air Force was quite worried about crashes at airfields, and we very readily and handily demonstrated how this helicopter could affect rescue of crews that were trapped at a flame, at a fire, at a fiasco. Demonstrations clearly illustrated how the downwash from the rotor could be extremely effective, coupled with chemicals to suppress a fire and actually make a rescue. Now just watch what happens here. It was almost no time at all, no time before a live rescue of the entire Olympic team took place at an airbase, just as you're seeing this simulated rescue on the film.
Can you say, It's just terrible. We just hope that they get somebody out of there alive. In that aircraft are the world champion skydivers. I mean the world champions. They've defeated the Russians, defeated everyone. And that was the U.S. Air Force Thunderbird C-123. Right now they're cranking up a helicopter. They're going to try and blow the flames out. This has been done repeatedly. We hope they're successful.
It happened that the H-43 was sitting on the ramp and the pilots were in the audience when this Air Force aircraft crashed. The boys ran down quickly, jumped in their helicopter, were airborne in a matter of virtually seconds, and got out there and pumped cold air down through that fuselage and saved the boys. Next came the H-2, the UH-2 helicopter. It had to go on water. It had to go at night. It had to go in ice storms. It had to fly 200 miles and pick up 11 people, unaided by any external navigation. It had to go 200 miles back. This was a phenomenal helicopter. We won a competition industry-wide to build it, and the specifications for it were really remarkable elements of technological achievement. This was a demonstration at Congamong, but it was very shortly followed by trials at sea and demonstrating the helicopter with all types of special gear for sea duty. It wasn't very long before we realized that to be effective at sea, we would have to have 2 engines. And so we changed the installation to accommodate this, and in so doing, the UH-2 helicopter in time became the SH-2F, assisting the Navy in fighting submarines and in submarine detection. And we go aboard the destroyers in what is called the outer zone of the Fleet Task Force. They drop sonar buoys and markers. They have MAD gear, which is magnetic detection. And of course, when you want to get the guy, you drop a torpedo on him. The versatility of the SH-2 has never been equaled by any helicopter going. And in one set of test flights, we demonstrated the so-called nap of the earth capability by maneuvering very close at low altitudes and showing turns up to 90-degree banks, which is sort of unheard of in helicopters. But this one could do it, and it did it exceedingly well. The one thing that characterizes command, I told this to WPOP yesterday. They gave me an interview, and they've been broadcasting it. He said, "What makes command different?" And I said, "It's people." You can go to a lot of companies, and you just don't find the spirit, the dedication, the willingness to work and achieve, and the satisfaction in achievement that you find here. And this is true of all of our companies. Naturally, this is our headquarters, this is the oldest company, and we have a cluster of companies here. But it's the same with the outfit in Montana, or the one in LA, or the one in Alaska. Wherever there's a command sign, the attitude of the people is the same, and that's our hallmark: people, dedication. We're proud of it. And we're very, very proud of you. I want you to know I was so proud that to commemorate this 40th anniversary, I wrote a book. You know, in the book, I talk about the perseverance and the struggle of the early years and how we had to work night and day and weekends and all the rest. But I want you all to know that to roll out that T-700, the people that are here, those of you that are here right now, had to do the same thing. And we talk about the day that we first flew that K-225 and the flight tests and how it had to be successful or all was lost. Today, with the T-700, the same thing happened. We went through complete trials with the Navy, 6 weeks, never missed a single flight. The dedication of these people is just as real, as big as it ever was. I share that with you because it's really heroic. And it doesn't matter whether it's the SH-2 or the slosh baffles for the space shuttle, or for a component for the B-1, or a guitar, or a bearing, or a flex coupling, or parts that we buy from SKF or Timken and sell in our bearing companies. It is all the same. The common denominator is our people. And toward that end, we have delayed the production flight testing of a plane that'll be delivered tomorrow, that is Monday, until today, so that in the course of this production flight test, you would have a chance to see Al Ashley fly it by. You are about to see the right stuff. And believe me, here it comes. That is the most maneuverable helicopter in the military today. It is also the smoothest and the most stable. It is very gratifying to stop and remember that command helicopters have saved and rescued thousands of lives, probably 15,000, in conflicts, in war, and in peacetime.